Welcome back to the Team Talk with Tom and Jack. I'm Tom.
And I'm Jack.
And this is episode 2.
It is. We host this podcast to help inspire coaches, teachers and parents in order to improve children's wellbeing together.
In this episode, we welcome Amanda Lamb, a TV presenter and mum.
We discuss a variety of topics, but the main ones are wellbeing, work-life balance and parenting.
We hope you enjoy it, team.
We have today on the show, we've got Amanda Lamb.
Hello.
Welcome,
Hi.
Amanda.
This is really weird because you look after my children, and now I'm sat in your kitchen going, "Oh, this is odd."
We're very excited, aren't we? We've got a lot to look at. So we're gonna jump straight in, I think, aren't we?
I think we are. Yeah. So we know a little bit about you because obviously our unique relationship, having coached and taught your children.
Yeah.
So what we're going to begin with is your earliest experience of a sports day.
Yeah.
Experience. If you would like to elaborate.
Yeah.
I've got an interesting story to tell.
I've got my very first sports day would have been when I was in reception. So I was at Trosnan Infant School down on the south coast near Portsmouth, and back in those days. It wasn't those days. I am really old. I'm really old. Back in those days, back in the dark ages, there wasn't any of this everyone's a winner thing. It was you were first, second or third.
Yeah.
And it's one of my earliest memories. And funnily enough, when I was driving here today, I was thinking a lot of the memories that I have as a child were very much sport related. And I did the egg and spoon race, that classic.
Classic.
Sack race.
Classic.
Yeah. And just a running race. And I won every single one. And I had 3 little red rosettes with a 1 on them. And I remember that immense feeling of pride, even at that age, of having these red rosettes on and kind of walking back from school and thinking, yeah, I did it. And I think that was probably where the love of sport and what it did for me as a child in terms of confidence and ability, it was probably that very first sports day. I can even remember kind of the smell of the field and where it was. And it was a sunny day and, where all the parents were standing. It's like looking at a movie. And that was, 42 years ago. I am that old, people. So, I'm 47 now. And that was, I was 5 when I did it.
Because, you also had another... Conversely, quite a unique experience with swimming.
Yes.
Maybe if you'd like to.
Yeah. So again, in that year, we had gone on holiday to the Isle of Wight to a caravan park, and neither of my parents could swim.
Right.
So none of us were ever taught. Nowadays babies are bobbing around in pools at 6 months old, aren't they? But as a child of the 70s, my parents they hated it. They hated the water. And so they never swam, so they never took us swimming. And we were on holiday in a caravan park, and it was at the time when there was a TV programme called The Man from Atlantis, which I guess nowadays would be like Aquaman.
Right.
It was Patrick Duffy, and he could swim underwater. And I was in a swimming pool, and my parents were on the side, and I was bobbing around. I had a little rubber ring on, and, I was just doing what kids do. And I probably got a bit leery and I thought, I don't need this. So I took it off.
Yeah.
And then I slipped and I went under the water.
Right.
And I was under there for, I don't know how long, but because Patrick Duffy swam underwater and could breathe and talk and everything, I thought I could do the same. So I was just breathing normally. So obviously my lungs were filling with water. Right. And I, again, can remember there was a white bar and I was trying to reach the bar. And every time I went for it, there were so many kids in that pool. It was like kids' soup, there's thousands of them. And every time I went, I got sucked back in. And then I remember just thinking, this is quite nice. I'm not actually here. I'm in the caravan. So I guess at that point, my brain was shutting down, or I don't know what was going on. But at this point, my mum was then like, where is she? Where is she? And she could see me on the bottom of the pool. So she kind of went, my dad jumped in and got me and pulled me out. And I was fine. Wow. But it's quite weird, isn't it? Because it's like, one of my biggest fears for my own children is them drowning.
Yeah.
Obviously. I get the right heebie-jeebies when I go over a bridge. Anything with deep water, don't get me on the Isle of Wight ferry anymore. I'm useless. So I made sure that my children learnt to swim from a very early age.
Yeah.
And for you, how long was it until you went back in the pool after that experience?
probably went back in the next day, I would have thought. You know, it wasn't like...
traumatic kind of like phobia setting sort of thing.
No. Although the fear of deep water is now still there. I'm not a great swimmer now. Never have been.
Right. I think it's the same as the sports day incident, isn't it? Whether it's a positive or a negative memory, they stand out for very different reasons, and they have a massive sort of impact on everything you do from that point onwards.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting if we actually talk about. So you were in the games, 24 games, and really interestingly, there was a swimming event in that. And you know, you did really well in that.
Well, define well, Jack.
Well,
I didn't win.
If we
I didn't come last.
But if we take that experience when you're younger, considering that change, I mean, you know, to put that memory behind you and use it to spur you on, I think is a massive thing. So how did you, I guess, what helped you overcome that? And, you know, third place is third place. It's an amazing achievement.
Yeah. I mean, I think with the swimming, I mean, we did, I think it was 8 or 9 events, which we can obviously talk about a bit later. But with the swimming, I hated it. Ugh. That whole, it's just, I'm just not a fan. I'd love to be. You know, sometimes when I go to the gym and I watch people in the pool and they're just powering up and down and they've got this amazing form and I'm like, oh, look, you're turning your head at the right time and it just all looks so effortless. With the swimming there, I just had to keep practicing.
This project couldn't have started without the sponsorship of Teammates.
That's right. Teammates is our sports coaching company that we co-founded back in 2016.
For more information, please head to weareteammates.com.
Now, back to the podcast. Yeah, it's really interesting that Sally Gunner was there because obviously she brings a skill set of being an amazing athlete and however many time champion in her sport. Did she bring or give you any advice for any of the events that stuck with you in any way?
She taught us the hurdles.
Right.
So we did hurdles as well. And it was just so strange to be in a room with somebody that was, you know, an Olympic champion. It was like, oh my God, it's Sally Gunnell. And she just, you know, just perseverance, just keep going, don't give up, you know. And just when you looked at how all of our trainers, you know, the amount of hours and time and effort that they put in to be top of their game. And I kind of try and say that sometimes to the kids. You know, I obviously don't practice what I preach because I haven't been in a pool since. But, you know, I often say to the girls, you know, people that have become Olympic champions or famous authors or whatever it may be, it doesn't just magically happen overnight. You don't just wake up and become a world champion at the 100-meter sprint. You have to get up when it's cold and it's wet and you don't want to do it and you just have to keep going.
Yeah, as Wills knows all too well.
Yes, as my daughter knows and her mother knows because I have to get her up and get her ready for it. So I'm the one that's dragging her out in the morning. Come on, Jack and Tom are going to be waiting. Hurry up.
No, they did a brilliant job on this. We're just interesting enough talking about doing well in the swimming. And, you know, with Sally Gunnell there's obviously the physical side and the training that she can help you guys with. In terms of mentally preparing for it, was it the hammer throw? What was the event? I know we spoke about this before.
There were so many events. There were so many events that I think having taken part in that programme, and for your listeners that maybe have never seen it before or heard of it before, it was a Channel 4 event. It was a big thing. It was on E4, it was on Channel 4, it was watched by millions, which didn't help.
That's a massive point in itself, carry on, but performing in that pressure as well.
We were trained over 4 months. Right. So a bit like Strictly and all of these kind of events. We would do 2 or 3 different things every week, and it was constant training. But where I stumbled and where others excelled was on the actual night itself. The nerves got me. And I sucked at a lot of it, but I was really good at archery. Because I did the archery here, over really close to where you guys live. There's an archery centre just down by 10 minutes away from here. And the archery was interesting because it was one of the last events that we had a go at. And I was really bad at quite a lot of them. And then I picked up this bow and I was like Robin Hood. I mean, I just did it. You know, it was really weird. I could just do it.
Do you think that was because you were at the start of it, you go, right, clean slate, the scoreboard there's nothing on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of it, you sort of felt a little bit of that pressure go because I guess you've got some of the events out of the way and your performance had been your performance, whether you were pleased with it, disappointed with it, whatever. Do you think by the end of it that you were sort of resigned to, this is what's happened, I'm just going to go for it? And in the archery presented itself an opportunity that you were like, right, I'll just do it and show that training, because I know that it's difficult sometimes, isn't it, when you're under that pressure to show what you're capable of.
It was an interesting, because we had 4 months of training for all of the events. So before the actual program started, they were filming us and recording us for every single thing we did. We had a camera on us.
Wow.
And I can remember in one incident, we were doing the 100-meter sprint. So there was myself, Bernie Nolan, God rest her soul, Javine Hilton, who was the runner-up in Girls Aloud, Michelle Gale, and a girl called Julia Goldsworthy, who was an MP. So a really random, eclectic mix of people.
Yeah.
And I remember the 100-meter sprint practice session, very first time we did it. And bearing in mind, talking about when I was a kid, I was really good at sport. I remember being on the line and, them shouting go, or, whatever it was. And everybody, Bernie Nolan included, shot off, like whip it. And I was at the back and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I've never been at the back. This is really weird. And it was a very odd experience. They talk about being on a journey and all of that stuff that reality TV loves to do. But it really was, because it taught me an awful lot about myself. So there were certain things that as soon as we started, I was either really bad at, I was all right at and could improve, or I excelled at.
Yeah.
The archery was one. I literally just picked up a bow,
Boom.
drew it, boom. And the guy actually at the time said, maybe he was drunk, but he said, if you carried on like this and put in enough training, you could do the Olympics in 2012.
Wow.
Clearly I didn't. But again, the confidence wasn't there.
Right.
Which is quite interesting, because I had bags of it when I was a kid.
We were speaking about this the other day, weren't we? And I know there's an example of you, even in, take away the millions of viewers, take away the cameras, take away the people in the stadium, and put your mates there. I know there was and it's happened with me as well, but there was an example where all the practice just is like, right, forget that.
Yeah.
Pressure takes over.
Absolutely. No, I had that with, I was just teeing off, golf course, all the rest of it, but everyone's watching.
Yeah.
It's just like, however many times I've teed off and all the rest of it. You don't play this game so many times before. There's something about... we've got that.
That'll be the coffee machine.
But something about that time, I just went... And you could just feel the club moving. You could feel the whole thing around it just being like... The pressure just rose within me.
Yeah, and I found that with a lot of the events. So the archery... a lot of the events I was way, way, way behind. But archery, hammer, and curling, all of those events were anyone's game. It kind of didn't matter whether you were really fast or whether those were events that anyone could have won. And in theory, I should have won all of them. And I didn't.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. But it was the pressure on the day.
Did they give you any advice to deal with that?
Only other than just try and block everyone out, just literally focus on what you're doing, because it's obviously, I don't know whether you guys know, but Willow's dad, my husband, was a gymnast and was until he was 18, and he never felt the pressure in competitions. Really? And he was, he bangs on about it forever, and he always does it around dinner table. I'm like he's the second best gymnast in Great Britain, but he was an amazing gymnast. But he was an amazing gymnast because he didn't go to pot when it mattered.
Does he say what led to that?
He's just got that. He's just got that confidence.
Okay.
Which I'm in awe of. Sometimes he'll walk downstairs and I'll go, God, you look really handsome today. And I'll go, thanks. Whereas if it was the other way around, if someone said to me, oh, you're looking really lovely, to go, oh, really? Oh, this is an old dress. Or I don't have that inner confidence, which people would find quite odd, I guess, because I've presented TV forever and all the rest of it. But the actual confidence itself, I don't have. And I think that's probably why when I started in sport or when I did the games, it went.
Yeah, but it's really interesting, the parallels to be drawn, I think, between sport and live TV. So we've seen you many times on there. I know you're on there a lot on the right stuff.
Yeah.
And Tom and I have been discussed this before, and so there are some games of football, for example, that I'm playing. There might not be any spectators because no one cares. Apart from
we care, Jack. We'll come next time. Let us know.
From the people that are involved on a rainy,
I'm not coming for that.
Exactly. We care, but it's not. We're just there to do our best and do for our team. But we know that when we start, I'm really nervous before some of them. But once it starts, no matter how much you prepare, you don't necessarily know how it's going to pan out. And I guess the question that I have for you around live television is with things like the right stuff, that is a similar way in that I know it's not sport, but you are performing. Yeah. It's a performance, and you're in front of it's live. Yeah. It's being streamed to however many million people. Do you still have that apprehension when you go on there?
No, I don't. And isn't that ironic?
That's a really interesting thing, I think.
But in a way, beforehand I do. Yeah. And I've done live TV, for the last 15 years. Beforehand, I'm almost sick with nerves. Right. I did a show called The Saturday Show, which was a Channel 5 thing for, I stood in for Gabby Roslin, and I've done live radio shows, anything like that. Beforehand, I'm really panicking and I feel sick, and it's like, ooh. And the night before, I don't sleep properly. But as soon as that red light goes on, I forget all about it, which is interesting because it wasn't like that when I did the games.
Yeah.
I didn't just think, right, I'm going to do it.
Why do you think that was?
I think it's because I told myself I wasn't going to be very good.
Right, the self-talk.
Yeah. And it's in, even things like, so we had to do kayaking. Oh my God, have you ever tried it?
What was kayaking?
Yeah.
It's horrific. And we used to have to go to Nottingham once a week. We'd drive all the way up there in January.
Wow.
You'd put on this wetsuit, you'd stick on this hat, you'd look like I did once say I looked like a boiled egg in a condom, because I just had this white hat on and this kind of really tight little suit. And you'd get in them, and obviously going back to the fear of drowning, it's dark, it's cold, you'd get in this kayak, you'd take off, you'd capsize, you were so cold you'd have to get out, dry off, and you'd go home. And you'd be like, that's like a waste of my day. But again, ironically, I was the only one during all those 4 months of training that completed the course. The only one. And then on the night, straight out. So what's that about? It's weird, isn't it?
So, we're going to bring this back to something that maybe you're a bit more confident around and were sort of from the get-go.
Yeah.
Had that potentially perceived competence and confidence with the netball.
With the netball. But I was just, let me just quickly jump back to that, because this is like therapy. It's only now, thinking about it, the kayaking, I was first up and it was the first event.
Right.
And I capsized straight away. There was that one little bit that you had to go down and I flipped. Now I wonder, if I'd have got down that course,
nailed it first time,
and nailed it, whether my confidence then would have grown, or whether if it was archery first. I wonder whether any of it's to do with the order of it, because I just remember thinking, oh gosh, I've just done 4 months of this horrific training where it was cold. I got pleurisy at one point. Wow. It was horrible. And I did it, and I thought I can do this. And then on the night I didn't. And then from then on, and every single event after that I didn't go into it thinking I'm going to nail this. But I wonder if it had been another event and I hadn't come last.
I think you might be onto something.
Oh my gosh, this is like therapy.
That's what we, a lot of the time say to the kids that we coach. It's along those lines of imagine it going well, also imagine it not going well. So you're ready to cope with it. Yeah. Because you don't want to be like, oh, it's gone wrong. I've never imagined this to actually go wrong. But visualise it going well. What can those things occur?
And it's why we try and not take it out, because it's still really important. We've spoken about this in another podcast, haven't we? But it's still really important to have the winning and the losing. Yeah. But with things like, so something we say regularly to the squad, and it's slightly different if you do it in a game, for example, because there might not be that many opportunities for you to go whitewater kayaking again.
Never
but
doing it.
We say to the children, at the end of the day, if this is a loss here, this game, it's a loss in this game, but you haven't lost at the game of football. You haven't lost at the game of, no one ever wins football, no one ever loses football. It's just a lesson to take with you. And I think that takes us on to netball, doesn't it? You were a very avid netballer when you were young.
Yeah,
weren't you?
yeah, I loved it. I absolutely, that was, like when you're a kid growing up, that was my sport.
Right.
I found that when I was in year, hold on, what are we year do? I was in year 4, year 4, year 5 and year 6. So in those 3 years, that was it. I lived it, breathed it, slept it. I was very tall. I've always been tall, so even as a kid, I was a good sort of head and shoulders above everybody else. So yeah, I can remember I was goal attack. Again, back in the dark ages, we all had one position. This newfangled thing that you do, I can't keep up with, but we had one position and that was it. I was goal attack. And I can always remember when we used to go and play other schools, we'd all have our sweatshirts on and I'd on in at the back and I'd take my sweatshirt off and you could hear them all going, have you seen the size of their goal attack? She's huge. But A, I loved it, but B, I worked really hard at it. So every playtime, the nets were always out and I would ask to borrow a ball and I'd be there. And I used to be able to, from anywhere in that semicircle, get a ball in. And I loved it. It was such a, I always had a good aim. I can remember once, we didn't have red cards like we do now, but we used to have to go and stand on the mat, which was outside the headmaster's office. Right. And I was eating an apple in the playground and one of my friends said, I bet you can't throw that at Miss Tracy. Miss Tracy was the dinner lady and she was the other end of the netball pitch and I went, I bet I can. And I threw it and it hit her right on the back of the head. And then she turned around and went, who did that? And they all went, Amanda. So I had to go and stand on the mat. Great throw. Great throw.
See you later, bye-bye, good throw.
You should be a goal attack.
Yeah, get down there.
But I loved the whole element of camaraderie. I loved, obviously I loved the winning. We used to have big tournaments, all of it. It was all, and confidence-wise, yeah.
Yeah. It seems like you're very much a riding off confidence person up until this point at the very, at least. Do you feel like that has changed ever so slightly since these experiences, or?
Yeah, I think it's sort of. We were talking earlier. I was one of those really annoying kids who everything was pretty easy for me. School plays, I was Mary in both nativities. I was Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. I was Wendy in Peter Pan. I was the captain of the netball team. I was, God, listen to me. But, I would have really annoyed myself. But it was always quite effortless. It was always quite easy. Amanda's this, Amanda's that. And then the swimming came, which we can talk about at some point. So the confidence was just always there. So I wonder at what point one loses that confidence.
Because I know we've spoken about this before, being that invested in your netball and really loving it and really taking a lot from it and, learning a lot from it, I know it's very difficult for you when you break your arm. In that, was it for a final?
It was a tournament. We were playing. We were playing. So we were in year 5. And we were playing like our arch enemy. There's always one school, isn't there, that you can never beat. And ours were they were called Bosham Infant School or Junior School, and they were like the posh kids. And we were like the council estate kids. So, they used to come in their really nice clean van and they were always brilliant and they always used to beat us. And I remember when we knew we were going to have to play them, and I think it was in the semi-final of this competition, and you could see the big shiny gleaming cup, just goading us, going, look what you could have won. Yeah. And we were halfway through the match, and their goal defence was as wide as she was tall. She was like a tank. And we both went up for the ball at the same time. And as we went up, I twisted, she fell on top of me and my arm just went, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I got up and I couldn't hold it. And I then played one-armed for the rest of the game. Wow. But at that point, I looked down and my arm was like an aubergine, like it had gone purple and it had gone like twice its size. And my mum was watching at the sideline. And it's funny now, isn't it? Because I think back, God, we have changed so much. Like nowadays, you'd be straight off, wouldn't you? Back in the health and safety, whatever, just crack on. And my mum's like, oh, I'm not sure her arm really is quite right. And at this point, I'm like this, like trying to hold the ball and shoot at the same time using sort of one arm. And then the teacher was like, you've got to go to hospital. And I mean, I was just like, no, we can't. And they brought on the substitute. I hope she's not listening to this. It was useless. And we lost. Beat us again.
So coming back to it, cause
sorry, I'm not bitter or anything.
It's really, like, I think coming back to the whole learning lesson from sport, it's so important. And at the end of the day, you know, netball still carried on. You didn't lose the game of netball. You didn't win the game of netball.
Jack, we lost the tournament. It's like,
exactly.
I can't even begin to tell you.
How did that? Because it is not a nice feeling.
No.
How did that, or did it prepare you for any setbacks that? You know, because that feeling, you want to avoid that feeling. You remember those experience. Did it prepare you at all for any more setbacks later on in your childhood career?
You want to avoid them, but they are inevitable, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think it's, you know, age teaches you that there will always be highs and lows. You know, there's always going to be times when you are euphoric, whether it's in sport or, you know, everyday life. There's always going to be times when you're totally winning at life, and then there's other times when you're really not. And I think it's just trying to remember that there will always be, you know, a better time to come. You know, there's going to be, I think, ironically, the biggest lesson that I ever learned as a kid was when we had to start swimming lessons.
Right.
Because as we've talked about before, I'm a really bad swimmer. And for me, that's probably the biggest lesson that I ever learned growing up, was that I couldn't be good at everything.
Okay, that's interesting.
Is that? Do you reckon that if you had to give yourself advice when you were younger, that's what it would be?
Yeah, that you cannot be brilliant at everything, but you know, that's why I think sport is so important for children, because you have, and I see it now. I've got 2 kids of my own. You know, there are lots of children that aren't necessarily academic or amazing at maths or English or struggling with reading, but they could be really creative. They could be really good at sport. You know, I have 2 very different children. I mean, I'm convinced that somewhere my real child is somewhere else, because I have 2 children. Willow is 10 and Lottie is 6. Willow is the arty, sporty, it's just there with her, you know. Everything she does is effortless, whereas Lottie is far more academic. She's really good at reading. She's the best reader in her class. She's really gregarious and outgoing, whereas Willow's quite shy and retiring. So it's very interesting to see how different they are. And I think that knowing that you can't be good at everything is really important, but embracing what you can be good at.
And that brings us nicely back to the netball, the broken arm, and Willow, because strangely enough, it's like a prophecy that also, to an extent, happened to Willow as well. So what kind of advice did you give her? So
Willow is on her 3rd break now. She broke it when she was 5. She broke it when she was 9, and that was in the Borough Sports Day.
Yeah.
And that was horrific. And I knew exactly what she was going through, because up until that point she'd done the standing long jump and that throwy thing with the vortex, and one other race or one other sport, and then she was doing the 400 meters, and I could see her at the starting line, and they put too many children up on the line, and I was thinking, oh God, and I wanted to go over to her, and because I know what she's very much like me, I knew she was going to bolt. And I knew she was going to start trying to run fast. And I wanted to kind of say to her, just hold back, give it 2 or 3 beats, because you've got the stamina to go. But I couldn't get to her. And when that klaxon went off, she basically, it was like Grand National. She just went. Someone pushed and she tripped. And I could see her doing that. And it was like watching me at the same age. And I couldn't get to her. They wouldn't let me get to her. So I had to walk all the way down. And
What did you say to her?
I said, well, it's interesting because it's ongoing. Because obviously last year she couldn't do it because she'd broken her arm again. So this year or next year, you know, going forward, I would think she'll probably get picked again. And she is panicking about it. She's already said to me, Mummy, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do the Borough Sports. And I've signed her up for an athletics club because I thought that would help. It's at the same track. It's at the Mo Farah track. So I'm thinking that might help her a little bit. I don't want to be that parent that's like, get out on that track, you know. So it's a balance,
you don't want to
isn't
create
it?
phobia, but you also don't want to, you know.
Yeah, I think it comes back to it, and there's different types of reluctance to try something new, and whether it be your own perceived confidence with it, whether it be a bad experience, whether you might think, well, I'm not going to do that because I'm no good at football, so I'm not going to try out for the football team. And I know that there was part of Willow that was saying that a few years ago, and I know that as you just said, she might be very reluctant to do the athletics. Do you think you and Sean have helped her in going, just because you might not want to do it, just because you don't think potentially it suits your skill set, let's try, let's do it and give it our all and see where it gets us? Do you think you and Sean have helped her with that?
We try as much as we can, but it's a very fine line, isn't it? When you're a parent, I'm so mindful of the fact that I don't want to be one of those pushy, just get out there and do it type parents.
Yeah.
But equally, you have to give Willow a little bit of a nudge, because Willow's, if she's good at something, she's all for it. See, ironically, again, Willow's not great at swimming. She doesn't enjoy it. And I was taking her to swimming lessons. She can swim. But I was saying to her, God, this is like therapy. I was saying to her, yes, you can swim, but you haven't got the stamina. You haven't got the, when you take your kids on a Saturday morning, you see the poor little things like ploughing up and down, up and down, up and down. And I said, when you go back to school and when you start your swimming lessons again, if you don't keep up your swimming lessons that mummy's taking you to, when you go back to school, there's a chance that you won't be in the top group. That's fine. If you don't, it's fine. And she wasn't. She was put in the bottom group. And she came home and she was really sad. I've been put in the bottom group, mummy.
Really, really interesting you say that, because one of my most vivid memories of...
You didn't get put in the bottom group.
I went to the same school as Will's did, and Tom and I both went there. One of my, clearest memories as a child was, and I was a crier. Tom will toe, and
I'll back him up.
I'm speaking directly to Ellie Rose here. Tom,
do you know in Portsmouth?
She reminds me regularly. I know I was a crier.
In Portsmouth, you're called a squinny.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that expression? You're a squinny.
And I was a crier, and I cried whenever I got subbed off in a game of football. I got cried whenever I lost it, and I cried because my grandma. And she still does with my cousins and my younger siblings. She used to take us to Teddington swimming baths every week.
Ugh.
And I used to swim there and get lessons. And I remember being put in the bottom group.
Did you cry?
And bawled my eyes out. and that was because my perceived where I should be was associating the fact that, well, I've practiced loads at this, so I should therefore be the best. And I don't know who it was, where I decided I was going to do it, but I made it I think it was probably my dad, and we come back to pushy parents. I think my dad found, and my mum as well, they found a really good balance themselves between pushing me and also going at the same time, you've got to be autonomous. I really practiced at the swimming and really stuck at it, and it's just interesting, isn't it, with that perceived confidence, if not fear of failure, I guess, but in terms of comparing, that's all it was, comparing.
Yeah.
Do you think, in terms of, and I know we've spoken about this in terms of well-being before, do you worry about if Willow compares herself to other children? She's never compared herself. I've never once heard her say, but so-and-so is a much better runner than me, or so-and-so is much better at swimming than me. She's just a natural born warrior, not warrior. I hate those two words. She worries about everything. But what if the, when we're on holiday, but what if the taxi doesn't arrive, and what if we don't get on the aeroplane, and what if we miss our flight, and what if we get there and the hotel's shut, and what if she has that inbuilt worry about all sorts of things. But equally, she's fiercely competitive. So it's a knife edge. It really is.
Because it sounds, and obviously from knowing her, she's very extroverted, but also she would definitely score high on neuroticism on that worrying scale.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant when you are able to actually hone those skills. Because we need more neurotic people around us, because we're not. And that means
I can hang out with you loads. I'm massively neurotic.
So we need people like my mum and other people.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we genuinely don't see what's going to go wrong.
Right.
You need, when you don't have that, you just think, everything's going to be fine.
We'd fly off.
And you need people like that.
But I also think a really important thing to teach your children is that their feelings are valid and that it's okay. It's instead of, you'll be fine, just, don't worry about it. really love it. Does it feel really strange? We went, not sport, we went to see, we went to a film premiere this weekend, which was all very swanky, and it was at the South Bank in London, and there were, lots of photographers and paparazzi there, and loads and loads of people and YouTubers that Willow recognised, and I thought it was going to be an amazing experience. And then we went into London and we did all of the tourist things, and ironically, she looked quite scared and she just went, "Mummy, I'm finding this really overwhelming." And I could have gone down two routes there. I could have gone down the route of, do you realise how lucky you are? There's hardly any children that come to something like this. You should just, jolly well. Or I'm hoping I did the right thing and went, yeah, it is a bit, isn't it? I totally get it. The photographers make Mummy quite scared. And it is but look on the bright side, we get to see Spies in Disguise. You must go and see it because it's absolutely brilliant. I said, we get to see this movie before anybody else does. We're really lucky to be here, but I totally understand it. It is quite a daunting prospect. And the fact that she used the word overwhelming was...
She must have a good tutor.
She must have an amazing tutor, Jack.
Vocabulary.
But I think it's really important when children are scared to recognise and validate that feeling, as opposed to just saying to them, "You'll be fine, just get on with it."
And I think that is one of the most important things, or one of the biggest reasons that we do the coaching that we do, because it provides such a brilliant vehicle, doesn't it, to just be almost like a microcosm of all the important life lessons we've found that you can just encapsulate in a game of sport, whether it be a training session, a really important match, a friendly, a game in the playground. We found that those feelings of being overwhelmed, being worried, being really excited, being really all of those emotions attached to sport are really... The sport acts as a really good vehicle, doesn't it, to teach those lessons?
If we didn't have sport, we wouldn't.
You'd be out of a job.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be able. I wouldn't be as stable emotionally with all of the turbulent stuff that you go through and you learn from, and then you're like, oh, I've done that before now. It's almost like a confidence building thing. I know that's going to feel a bit like when that happened in sport. But it's interesting you were saying about obviously the girls and the balance that you now need to strike with the kids and the career and the opportunities that you've got. Do you want to maybe elaborate on how it is that you balance and think about the well-being of your children? In the limelight.
I've sort of stopped a lot. So Place in the Sun, for example, which is probably the show that most people would know me from more than any of the others. So Place in the Sun, I've given up because I've had to, because my children are more important than rolling around a beach and having lovely times in Fiji and Australia. You are more important. Mummy loves you. But Place in the Sun, I was away for 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time. So when my children came along, and ironically, I find now the older they are, the more they need you, and it's not they don't need me to get them dressed anymore or anything. Willow in particular just needs me around. She just needs me in the house. And so with Place in the Sun, you're away from Sunday night until Friday, and Sean is away filming as well. So one of us has had to go, hold on a minute, I'm going to have to take a bit of a back seat and slow down.
So with that as well, so you've slowed down, you've put certain other things in place. What do you reckon is something that you've put in place that has really worked effectively to try and assist the well-being of your children and make things balanced, other than obviously being around more? Are there any certain routines that you have, or any certain conversations that you try and have?
I think for Lottie's still quite little. She's 6. She's not that little, but Willow's the one that I'm kind of trying to hone in a little bit now. And I'm trying to sort of prep her for the next stage of her life. 10, I guess, for boys is a very different thing than 10 for girls. She'll be 11 next year, and I can already see the changes. I can see her starting to grow up. And I am wary because she's the sort of child that worries about a lot of things. And there's so much pressure on girls nowadays in terms of social media and we can go off on a complete tangent now, but things like Instagram and airbrushing and all these filters. Don't get me wrong, I love a filter, but all those sort of filters where you suddenly don't look like yourself. And for me now, it's because we're having. Can I get an Instagram account, mummy? No. Can I get no? I've become really Victorian, and I am very, very wary that I am dealing with this delicate little fragile egg. That I need to look after and nurture and make sure that it doesn't crack.
Yeah.
But I think the sport for Willow has been brilliant. And actually, as we were talking earlier on, the team events, because that's the other thing that, apart from netball, so my biggest joy in sport was netball, and my biggest hatred was swimming. Swimming was an individual event.
Yeah.
Netball was a team event. And the same with the games. I was on my own in every single event.
Yeah.
I didn't have a group of people around me that had my back. Because I remember when you guys did the football tournament with Willow, and you were texting us all the scores and things, and there was one where you won and then you lost and then you drew and then you lost, and I was like, oh, I wonder how she's going to be having lost. But then when I turned up, she was cool. She was fine. Yeah, they lost, but you guys do such a good job of teaching them that it's okay. It wasn't the be all and end all.
Yeah.
And she had a great day, but that's because she was surrounded by all her mates. And I think that camaraderie that you get as a team player is massively important. And I wonder whether you need a different personality to be a team player than you do if you're an individual sportsman.
I think definitely there are, people who are very keen to be individuals.
I was really interested by what you said earlier about, because I've had the same experience when playing golf. So I play golf in front of my friends, and it's a different ball game. If we played golf as a pair, for example, and I knew that you were
holding the thing at the same time, like in Ghost, who's Demi Moore?
I'll be that if we were playing as a pair, and we've done this before, so when we did, we did Friday night, and we did the very short. Tom and I had to dress up as the ugly stepsisters, and it was completely out of our. We knew we wanted to get it right because it was an amazing evening for an amazing cause, but we were so out of our depth.
Oh, God, you were brilliant. You were so good.
Thank you. We really enjoyed it, didn't we?
Yeah.
And
right.
I think one of the reasons why we really enjoyed it was because of it was something new for us, and it was different, and we were out. I do think I was personally out of my depth, and there were things that you did and I did last week that I think helped us get through that. And coming back to it, if we played golf as a pair, and I knew that you were anxious, or you knew that you knew that I was anxious. Sorry, I think there is a massive argument for the social importance.
Huge
of sport, social importance, and how coming back to that, how did you find? Because I knew you were the captain of the netball team. If we take it back, how did you find the social aspect of playing when you were younger? Being the captain, is that something that you enjoyed?
I was immensely proud of it. I was proud of being the captain, but I was also immensely proud of being part of a team.
Right.
And like we were saying earlier, that whole camaraderie that you get when you're in the minibus and you're going to Front Lawn or Bosom or wherever it is, and you're all together and you all get your sweatshirts on and you're all having a little chat about what's going to happen, and all of that was great. And even when we did lose, you still had a group of people. Inevitably, there was a squinny in there, a crier, which was obviously like a Jack. But there were also, but we all kind of jollied each other up. Yeah. And, even things like, when they do say us Croft and we would do a week where we went to the Isle of Wight as a group, and everyone sort of got together and worked as a team. And I think it takes a very different personality to be an individual sportsman. And maybe that's why, with the games, I wasn't as good. Well, I just wasn't as good. Yeah. But, maybe it was because I wasn't part of a team.
Yeah, I'm going to segue here slightly to your professional career and everything. Obviously, it's you as you're the Amanda Lamb personality. But were there, when you were, say, what you would deem your proudest moments in your career, was there a network of support there that we've spoken about? Dealing with the tough times, but was there a network of support there with your whoever it may be, friends, family, other people who work in industry, who, when it was all going really well, they helped you and said, "Look, this is how we're going to help you deal with the pressure, or were you on your own, or was it a?
No, I've got a very small core of girlfriends that have been with me, kind of like you two, I guess, from day one. Like my oldest, dearest friend I've known since I was 15, and then I've got another two friends that I've known recently through my children, and then another one that I've known since I was 20. So I have probably about 4 or 5 what I would call really, really tight, close girlfriends that are always there, that I can tell everything to, which is amazing. And then I have an amazing mum. I was spotted when I was 21 by 4 different model agencies. I'd come up to an exhibition in London, and 4 of the big agencies came up and said, "We think you'd make a great model. Would you be interested?" And at the time, my dad thought I was mad because I worked in an estate agent in Portsmouth. And my dad was like, "You're mad. Why do you want to go to London? Why do you want to?" And my mum went, "Go. Here's a little food parcel. I'm always here if you need me." And she taught me, there's an amazing book called The Prophet by a guy called Khalil Gibran, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it's basically, your children are not your children. They are the arrows from which your bow sends forth. Right. That kind of thing. I.e., you're the bow, they're the arrow, let them go. Yeah. And I'm, desperately want to do that with my children as well, because, God, I love my dad, but if I'd listened to him, I'd still be living in Portsmouth, working in an estate agent. Not that that's a bad thing, but it would have probably crushed me. Whereas my mum was sort of, go for it. If it all goes wrong, you can always come back, but you have to give it a go. Yeah. And for the first year, it was awful. And I was on my own. I was up there on my own. I'd rented a house from a friend. I had to clean houses. I worked in a bar. I did all these jobs because I just didn't earn any money in the first year that I was up there. And I quite often would phone my mum after 6 o'clock because it was cheaper to call after 6 than it was before. And I'd go, "I hate it. I want to come home and I don't like it." And she kind of made me stick at it.
So was she sort of like your biggest mentor in your career?
In everything, yeah. Okay. She's always been there for me. She's an amazing woman. She never judges. She'll never, "We shouldn't have done that," or "I wouldn't have done that," or she's always been there from year one. And that was the other thing. Ironically, thinking about it, talking about career, when I knew that I was going to have children and I didn't want to miss the parents' evenings, the assemblies, the harvest festivals, which, all of them that I sit through. I like sitting through, well, some of them I like sitting through.
Concert season.
Oh, yay, it's tomorrow, I can't wait. But you watch, I can see Willow and Lottie and they're scanning, they're trying, and then there's that look of like, "Oh, she's there, phew, it's all right now, I can. And what I desperately want to do is manage to produce 2 children that I can send out into the world with confidence and an ability to do whatever they want to do. That's the plan in any case.
Brilliant. I think we've got a few quickfire questions to get through, haven't we?
I think we have. I mean, I was going to start those off with how you define success for yourself.
Blimey!
I mean, there's quickfire and then there's that.
That's not a quick-fire question.
What's your gut?
Happy. I just want to be happy.
Right.
That's it in the long run. I think we all try desperately to seek materialistic things, affirmation from other people. At the end of the day, for me, I think success is just happiness within your own self. You can have, the best job in the world, you can earn the most money in the world, you can be the best sportsman in the world, but if you don't have that inner stability and that inner core, it's pointless.
Yeah.
That was not quick fire. I was thinking like, Marmite or jam or, tea or coffee.
Hi, tea or coffee?
Coffee. Tea makes me a bit...
Fair enough.
We'll go through a few. What is the book or books you've most given as a gift and why?
There is a book by a Spanish author called The Shadow of the Wind. The guy is Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and it's about a little boy who lives in a bookshop during the Spanish Civil War, and he finds a book and somebody's after the copy, and it's all kind of intrigue and suspense, and God, I don't know what it was about it. I just loved it, and I met him once at a book awards, and I was just, oh God, I was that really embarrassing fan that just went up and just went, oh my God, I think you're amazing, and then sort of ran off. But yeah, Shadow of the Wind and The Prophet, Khalil Gibran, which I don't know whether you guys have read it, but it's a really good one.
I've heard the analogy. I haven't read the book, but
Do you know?
I've heard the analogy.
So basically, the book. I know this is quickfire, so I'll try and do it quite quickly. But the book is about a prophet that is on an island, and then a ship comes from his land to pick him up. I don't know where he's been, and I don't know why he's been there all this time. But all the people that live on the island are like, oh my God, don't leave. And he says, I am, but before I do, I'm going to tell you about everything. And so there's a section on children, there's a section on death, there's a section on marriage, there's a section on, and there's little snippets, like with the love and togetherness, there's a bit where it says about be like trees. So you're separate, your roots are intertwined, but you're two separate beings, which is, again, really important. So you can just get little snippets. So yeah, I would say that, the Prophet and Shadow of the Wind.
Is there any advice that people gave in your profession that you deeply disagree with? Something that you hear time and time again, and you're like, actually, no, that doesn't work.
Oh my God, that's a really good one. I think there's something in my career that I've now learned not to believe anything until it actually happens.
Right.
Because you will find a lot in TV is that you'll go, oh God, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to do that. That would be so brilliant. Yeah, I can, oh God, this is going to be fine. You know, yeah, I can see this is going to be a 10-part series. It'll be prime time. And then you can't wait, go, yes. And then you never hear from them again. Yeah. So I think, without meaning to sound like, I used to have a friend that used to say, don't expect anything and then you won't be disappointed. I'd be like, cheesy Duncan, you know, lighten up. Yeah. But actually he's kind of got a point. And in my industry in particular, you know, and when I was modelling and in TV, you get an awful lot of people that promise you an awful lot of stuff. And if it happens, brilliant. Just don't hold your breath.
Sort of a give without expectations.
Absolutely. Kind of yeah, absolutely. And always have a backup plan. I think that's another one.
Manage expectations, yeah. That's interesting. This is a biggie.
Oh. Can I not go back to tea and coffee? Let's just keep having tea and coffee.
Can I pass on? If you had one text and it was going to go to every single phone in the world, what would it be?
Oh my gosh!
And we haven't given you disclaimer. No warning about that. That's out of the blue. So,
well, without meaning to bring the whole thing down, I think what I would probably say to everybody now is, this isn't a dress rehearsal. Crack on, make the most of every single day that you've got down here. I was just saying to Tom earlier, my mum's been diagnosed last year with multiple myeloma. Yeah. So we're kind of like, oh, hold on a minute. And it does make you think, when you're stressing about the fact that someone's nicked your car parking space in the supermarket or whatever it may be, I would think it would be that, this is not a dress rehearsal. Stop fannying about, get on with it.
I think that's brilliant, because I think a theme of this whole conversation has been perspective. How it is that you look at these things. Are you going into it with, I better not fail, I've failed, what do I do? Or actually I'm looking at the game of life, not just that one tiny game of
Absolutely.
How that adds up. And also, giving without expectations, and it's been quite a stoic almost theme behind it. Are you into stoicism? Is that something you've read into?
Well, no, but I think one of the things that we haven't touched on yet is it's the swimming lesson thing that happened when I was 9. So bearing in mind we've talked about netball. We haven't talked about stool ball yet either. We must talk about stool ball. But we talked about how netball was my thing and I was really, really good at it. So I was like, and this isn't blowing trumpets, I was the best in the school. Then we started swimming lessons when we were in year 5. I was the worst in the school, like in the whole school, not just in my class, the whole school. I just couldn't get it. And we used to have certificates. So you'd have 1, 2 and 3. I can remember the colours, blue, red and green. and I got the blue one, which was basically getting in and out of a pool and going across a width.
Yeah.
I never got the other two.
Right.
And at every assembly every week, the teacher, Mr. Day, who was also called Misty Day because he was a magician, he was brilliant. He used to pull rabbits out of hats at the end of the term.
Brilliant.
It was like proper priceless.
Brilliant. That's why you were always Ofsted outstanding, right?
He used to stand up and call up people, and people would cut. And I never got the number 2 and number 3. But it taught me a really valuable lesson. And that was I couldn't be good at everything. And I hated it at the time. I felt so humiliated, really, really bad. And it was because, I'd gone from being this sort of star pupil to being someone that really sucked at it. I mean, I couldn't tread water. All we had to do was tread water for half a minute. Couldn't do it.
I think.
So it taught me I would say that's probably one of the most pivotal lessons that I learned in my childhood.
And we've spoken a lot about you learn lessons. Mm-hmm. You take, the good stuff away from them. You take not necessarily the good stuff, but the bad stuff away, and you learn from that. Do you feel like those lessons have had more of an impact on you, or do you feel like actually the most beneficial thing has been the way that you've dealt with these things with Willow and Lottie? So learning lessons almost for them, but still allowing them to fail themselves.
Yeah.
But going, look, when you do fail, because I've done this before, it's okay.
Yeah, and it is. And I think what's interesting is that the lessons that I learnt myself throughout my life, I can now offer the advice to my children. They probably won't listen because your parents are boring and old. But I can sort of say, I know this isn't going to help. And I have said this to Willow before, I know this isn't going to help, darling, but I do know exactly how you feel. Mm-hmm. And it will be easier and it will get better.
Yeah.
So I do know how it feels. Obviously, you don't. How would you possibly know how I feel? But the other thing that I try to do as well, and this is a learning curve for me, is allow them to talk and explore their feelings and not just project.
Right.
You might have gathered I am a projector. So sometimes I need to receive. And when you have children, you sometimes learn that you can't make it all better. You can't wave that magic wand. You can't take away their pain, physical or mental. But what you can do is be there. So if they need to talk to you, they can.
Do you ever find it hard, but know it's actually probably in the long term a good thing to watch? So with Willow, for example, I know it must have been really, really difficult, having gone through it yourself as well, to watch her have to sit out with a broken arm. Do you ever take a step back, and with that perspective that we spoke about, that I think has definitely run through this conversation, do you ever think, I know, without saying it, going, look, I know this is really difficult for you, and I really want to intervene, and I really want to just come and say it's going to be all right and make it all right, but do you ever consciously go, I'm actually not going to, and I'm going to let you work this out, that this it's your game to play?
Yeah, I do, and I'm starting to do it much more now. She's getting that little bit older. Yeah, because I think for most parents, you want to make it all right for your kids. You want to take away that pain. You want to but I'm thinking I'm not doing my job as a mum if I keep wrapping her up in cotton wool all the time. It's a bit like homework. When you were her teacher in year 3 and year 4, I was on her all the time. Homework. We've got to do it. Now I go, got your homework sorted? Yeah. Have you done it? No? Okay. And I leave her because I think, actually, I'm not doing her any favours by standing over her.
Yeah.
In a way, the only way she's going to learn is if she forgets it, or if she doesn't do it, or if she gets it wrong, or it's no good me helping her. I mean, I'm there if she needs me, although, as Jack well knows, fractions and algebra stuffed. I'm there to help if...
The answers are in the back, by the way.
I know that, but that's cheating, Jack. I now take a step back. I kind of think about it like a dartboard, which I know is something's coming up, isn't it? But I do sort of think about, my children are in the bullseye, and for the beginning of their lives, I was right in that bullseye with them. And my job is to slowly move out. So I'm on the old double, what's it? I want to be around that double thingy. What do you call that bit?
Just the doubles.
The doubles. I now want to be standing on the doubles and allowing them to explore that dartboard themselves.
That's really interesting because I think when I heard about that sort of, I think it might have been Einstein or something who said about what
Me and Einstein.
Supposed to be a good teacher is someone who is not needed.
Yeah.
Create an environment where you're then therefore not needed. People can go, oh, what would Tom do? Oh, I know what he'd say anyway.
Yeah.
That sort of environment is kind of what you want to create in a classroom as well as parenting and moving people forward. So that's really interesting.
I think very quickly before we wrap it up, because we've got about 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
If you hadn't have done Ruby trying to get in there.
Ruby, of course.
Tom's cat.
Ruby Tuesday, of course.
Ruby Tuesdays. Very good at that. If you hadn't have gone down the career path you have. So I'm meant to know how to speak English, being a teacher. If you hadn't have done that, is there anything that you wanted to have done?
No is the answer, and I think that's why my life has been quite serendipitous, because I had no clue. I've always been in awe of people I have a friend that's a shepherd, like a proper real life shepherd, and from the age of 6 his parents took him to a sheepdog trial, and that was it. That's all he's ever wanted to do. He got his first dog when he was kind of 8, and that's all he's ever done. I've never known what I've wanted to do. So I've sort of fallen into every single thing that I've ever done. So if I'd listened to my dad and stayed at home, I probably would still be working somewhere in Portsmouth. I don't think I would have travelled very far. And that's why I'm so grateful to the opportunities that I've been given. I'm sort of coming to the end of, well, not the end, but, my TV stuff sort of slowing down because of the kids and, various bits and pieces. So now I'm like, oh, it's interesting. What am I going to do myself now?
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about it because things always seem to just happen, you know.
That's interesting.
But I'd have loved to have said, oh, God, I'd really like to be a teacher, or I'd really like to be a vet, or I'd really like to be a lawyer. But nothing ever sort of, I never really wanted to do.
And it's quite refreshing as well to have this sort of perspective on it, that what's happened has happened. And
I'm never going to be a swimmer.
I'm very grateful for the way it's played out.
It's been the most serendipitous, wonderful life up until now. It's all been very, very, and even in the depths of despair, God, there have been dark times, and there have been times when I've, been thinking, God, what am I going to do in my life? Where's my life going? I'm never going to have kids. Am I ever going to get married? Am I ever going to, there's been lots and lots of, but I've never lost faith, because I've always known that eventually it will pan out okay.
Well, in terms of panning out okay, I think that brings our podcast to an end. I think it did pan out okay. I think that was a really, really great, great session, and thanks for coming on.
You're so welcome.
Thank
brilliant.
you.
I know we're going to go out and throw some darts in a minute.
When you say go out, I thought it was in here.
Oh no, it's in the shed. Don't you worry about that.
It's in the shed.
Oh yeah, no, we've got a whole little.
We have got the shed ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
Is it heated?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not, is it?
It is. I mean, depends on what your definition.
Define heat. Well, is it like the Bahamas? That's what I want to know.
Hello everyone, this is our 3-dart challenge, isn't it?
Certainly is.
We're here in the shed with Amanda Lamb. Just had a wonderful conversation.
Just done 3 bullseyes.
Yeah, she's just throwing 150 in as a practice. She's in good form. I think you're ready.
I think I'm ready.
We're going to go for it, as we do with all of our guests. 3 darts at the shed dartboard, and her score will be recorded and put with the rest. So we'll see how she fares.
Hey team, it's Finn here. Sorry to pause the video, but whilst editing this podcast, I realised I am loitering in the background. Don't worry, it's not a ghost, it's just me making sure everything is recording. Alright then, back to the 3-dart challenge.
So this is interesting. Going off the back of what we were talking about before, up until now, I've just thrown a load of darts because we were practicing.
No pressure.
I've just been having a chat,
pressure.
blah, blah, blah. I can now feel my stomach is now doing that. That might be the coffee, but it might also be the fact that I'm now in a competition element.
Well, interestingly, there may not have been 3 bullseyes hit, but there were still some very good darts in there.
So I did 49 in
49, 45, some good scoring darts, very narrow, so good luck.
Ooh, see?
Oh,
Plot lost.
Big 7. So in this case,
That's not a 7, is it? Oh God, it
two
is.
1s and a 5. In this instance, as a coach, at this point, we'd now, if we were talking to the kids, be saying some, putting some advice in. So the sort of things that we'd now be saying is, right, don't worry about, you know, the outcome itself. Is just like focus on doing your best. So aim specifically in, you know, don't just pick the red bit.
Right.
Try and almost, if you can, try and pick a spot within inside it, and whatever the darts are doing, don't worry about it. Just keep continuously aiming at that point there.
Right.
And keep the self-talk positive. It's like, I'm making darts.
Are you worried about where you might rank in comparison to the people, or not?
No, but interestingly, I am thinking about myself. Like, I'm my world's worst critic. Like, I'm already, and this is where I think I went wrong when I was doing things like the games.
Yeah.
I'm already going, oh my god, you know, like when I was just chatting to you about whatever and just throwing some darts, I was 40, 45, 49.
Really nice and straight.
But I'm going to listen to that, Tom. I'm going to aim for that.
Big A's. Yeah. Lovely effort.
That's a bit better, isn't it?
Brilliant effort.
44.
44.
Happy
44.
days.
See?
Up there. That second dart was really close as well.
That's because I was doing what you were.
Zone.
Yeah. Right. I also need to learn when to shut up and concentrate. Oh, you.
Oh, well, that's 20, I think. It was a square 20.
Still a great effort. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the hard thing with darts. The margins are so fine.
Can I take the middle? What was the middle one?
Yeah, whatever the highest one is, you take.
Three goes a 3. That is 40. Is it 44?
44. I'll have a 44. I'll take 44.
Happy days. No, I'm really.
I'm not. This doesn't count, by the way, because this is now not the competition.
Do you feel?
Interesting.
But I just want to see.
That's weird, isn't it? Pressure off.
Yeah, look at that.
Straight, lovely straight second dart there.
24.
36, 55. That. Do you feel? Do you feel that you just naturally wanted to do better as you went? That, as in the experience of throwing 7, knowing you've thrown more before. Do you feel like inside you were saying to yourself, you can do better?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Want to do better?
Yeah. I mean, even if, like, I know that we have to stick to the rules, but even if I scored sort of 5, 5, and 7 in that, I'd still stay in this shed until I got more than I did when I was practicing. Because that's the other thing, I'm quite stubborn. I've got all these really bad traits. I'm really stubborn. I don't have much confidence, but I'm going to just keep going until I get it.
But strangely, that is the makeup of a lot of really high performers.
I can't remember who it was, but it's a darts player, and he said, you're not allowed to go to the toilet. It might have been James Wade. I don't know. He said, you're not going to the toilet until you hit the quota of darts that he said he was going to hit, and he wouldn't go.
Wow.
And that stubbornness and that sort of, like, got to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's a massive driver, isn't it, for a lot of sports men
it's
and women.
interesting.
But it's one of those things, a bit like the Steve Jobs thing. It's, you know, along the lines of when you're not so passionate and believe genuinely that this outrageous thing can happen, but when it borders onto like, no, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
Like, it's just madness, delusion almost. It's the same sort of thing when you're going, I really want to make sure I can do this. I really want to make sure I do it. But when your self-talk becomes like, you've got to do it and you can't do it, and you can't, and then it's like downward spiral.
But that was really interesting when I did that first round and got 7, and then you said, because instantly those little negative, you know, things in my head like, you can't do it, you're no good. But then you saying just focus on that one spot on the board, I did. You see, and I think we didn't have this isn't like, you're amazing, but we didn't have coaches like you when we were kids. We didn't have coaches like you when we were doing the games that said things like that. And it's just that one little thing. And all I did then was focus on that middle red thing.
Treble bit.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think, and I picked up on this that you said, because we try and make an effort of doing this. And I think praise at any age. We have this thing, I think, we have a bit of a stigma around it that adults shouldn't get as much praise as children. And in the games, so Tom said to you just now, I think you hit 22 or something. It wasn't your highest scoring, but he said great effort. We've spoken about this in another podcast, haven't we? Just framing that feedback around, rather than going really crazy when you hit that 45 or that 55 and going, that's the best ever. Praising the fact that, you know, the focus was there in the second throw, the effort was there in the second throw. That's what we try to do, isn't it? As much as possible.
And it's interesting because it comes back to a book called Growth Mindset, or I think it's called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and it's around the verbal praise that you give children or anyone, and the difference between praising the outcome, as in you won, brilliant, or the process that led to it.
Because that's one thing that actually deserves a whole podcast in itself, is that fine line that you walk as a parent between believing or making little Johnny think he's amazing at everything, and actually making little Johnny realise that he's not amazing at everything, but it's really good to give it a go. Because I think there are some parents, that, well, that's not fair that he's not been included in the team, or that's not fair that... It's like, well, no. But there's a reason why. They call it helicopter parenting, don't they? Which is that thing where you hover over your child like a helicopter, and everything they do is great. Oh, no, they're allowed to do that, or they're allowed to do that. It's like, well, actually, they need to learn boundaries. They need to learn that, that they can do certain things and they can't do certain things, and that they're going to be really good at certain things and not so good at other things. And I think that's the tightrope that you walk as a parent, that as well you guys know, they can't be brilliant at everything, and it's like you say, it's teaching them that sometimes it's okay to not come first, and sometimes it's okay to be last. Obviously, I won't be last at this, because if I am, I'm going to come back. Now I know where you live. Now I know that this shed is pretty easy to break into. You might find me down here a lot, like,
Day, like,
with a little
just come
torch.
to get some firewood.
In the dark,
Amanda's back.
in the dark with a torch on my
It's 3 in the
head,
morning.
like still going.
It's the second time this week. You're welcome. You're
So do
always
keep me
welcome
involved.
back.
I shall
Always
obviously
welcome
listen to all the podcasts, and if somebody beats that immensely high score, I shall be back.
Well,
back. Look forward to having you
Oh,
back.
fingers
go.
lamb. I'll be back, ready to go. Thank you for having me. What did I get?
44.
4.
Double Desmond.
There you go. Almost my age.
Perfect.
Brilliant work.
Sorted.
So much.
Thank you for coming on, Amanda. We really loved talking to you, and we had a brilliant discussion, didn't we? Really enjoyed it. We touched on some really important points, and it was also a wonderful way to kick off our 3 dart challenge with a brilliant effort there and a score of 44.
Can't ask for any more.
No, you can't.
You can check out all of the links in the description. We've painstakingly made sure we've got all of the different things that we've mentioned with regards to the books and anything else, and also all of the links to Amanda Lamb's socials. Well, episode 2 done.
Yeah, Tom, do you want to help improve children's wellbeing together?
Yes, I do.
Do you know what you can do then?
What can I do?
You can like and subscribe.
Ah,
But you already have.
I have. See you soon, team.